for alternative income for self-employed, bank statements, 1099 programs, and things like that. So I wanted to throw that out there for you, because if you're a realtor looking at how you might add that one extra 2 or 3% to your business, you may want to contact me to find out about these great programs offered at Van Dyke Mortgage. Diana Harvey, mortgage advocate, making the American dream come true by finding the best loan for you.
I'm a big fan of taglines that rhyme. So great job, Diana. I appreciate the insight and the level of professionalism. All right. So I know we have some other vendors as well that are on the call that support the Tampa Bay Real Producers platform, that saw our topic today of how to have your best year ever and really felt like you guys had some value to add to the conversation. So we are really excited to have you here. We'll dive into that conversation now. Let me first start by introducing a couple of the people that, so our process now, unlike what it was a little bit in 2020, is I basically every month am emailing out to our group code and to our contact list the topic that we're going to be diving into for that particular monthly panel. And I just allow, people that feel like they have something that they want to share, somebody who, has a passion for a certain topic to reply back, raise their hand and say, hey, Don, I would love to be a contributor on this particular month's panel and share some insights. So that's been our process for we started doing that actually with the December panel, if you remember, last month, which was about how lessons from 2020. And there was some great lessons that we took from it. Obviously now, as we look forward for 2021, we did the same thing this month. And I wanted to just thank publicly a couple people that replied back and rose their hand and said, hey, I would love to be considered a contributor for this particular topic. So first person that replied actually was Chris McLaughlin. I want to thank you publicly, Chris, for your leadership in so many different ways. I know that you've made a massive impact on the real estate community in Tampa Bay for many years to come. So thank you for everything that you have done and for your willingness to be a part of this today. We will be learning a lot from you here in just a minute, I'm sure. I also want to thank publicly Katrina Madewell. I met Katrina, I don't know if it was last year. Was it last year? I guess it was 2 years ago already that I was on your radio show, Tampa Home Talk, and that's where we met. And I've seen your business has boomed, it seems like, since then. You've written a couple of books I've seen as well, and excited to hear your insights on how to have the best year ever. I also want to publicly throw a shout out to Jack Smith. Jack and I just met this year, actually, and he was featured. And you're gonna, by the way, see Jack if you haven't checked out our February issue yet, which was emailed out to everybody, but your hard copy is on its way. You'll be getting it in about a week, and Jack is featured in there as our rising star for the February issue. So welcome, Jack. Thank you for raising your hand to contribute today on the panel. I also want to throw some love to a friend of mine, Brandon Rhymes. Brandon, it's great to see you up and at 'em and healthy, and we've been praying a lot for you. I know that you go by Lindsay now, but God bless you. Brandon and I also met through his radio show, the Consumer Quarterback Radio Show. I'll throw a little plug out there for you too, Brandon. So thank you for raising your hand, and glad to have you on the panel here today as well. Two other people real quick. I wanted to throw some love to Liane Jameson. There she is, Liane with Dwell Real Estate. Liane and I met last year. We put a spotlight together on her. She was on one of our covers as a broker spotlight, and she is building a great team over there with Dwell. So I'm sure has some great things to share in just a second here. And then last, but certainly not least, I know I saw her a minute ago. There she is, Christina Griffin. All right. So Christina just opened up a new location, had a welcome party recently, was a contributor on our panel last month, and rose her hand to be a part of it again here, and always has immense value to bring to the table, has built a dynamic team with KW. So Christina, thank you for your leadership and your willingness to be a part of this panel as well. So I know we have a lot of other very talented people on this call that will add value. And so I want you to be clear that even though you might not be on the promo graphic that you see online as the people who I just recognized are, you are a valuable part of this panel. So as we dive into these conversations, don't hesitate to raise your hand, I know that we'll do our very best to try to keep it, not chaotic. All of you are muted right now, but so that, I'll try to control the flow so that people aren't talking over each other. And it felt like it went really well last month. So let's pray that it goes really well again during the course of this conversation. But feel free to raise your hand. There is a little raise your hand button that you can use if you want me to call on you to add some thoughts. We'll let the conversation kind of grow and go organically as we start talking about these topics. But the topic at hand, of course, is how to have your best year ever. So with that in mind, I guess I would usually start with what I think is the most important part of planning your best year ever, which is the mentality needed, right? So my question would be is, do you go into every single year with that mentality that this is going to be the best year ever? Is there anything different for those of you who maybe achieved your best year ever last year in 2020? Anything you can pinpoint differently from a mentality standpoint that was different about last year potentially that made it your best year ever, and tips on going into a new year to make it your best year ever. So let's open it up for anybody to jump in with some thoughts on the mentality part of making it your best year ever.
Well, Don, I'll jump in. It's Chris. And I'm just reminded by Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And it's just a great book. If you haven't read it before, it really does have just so many great points. But one of the things that he talks about, which I just participated in yesterday, is a mastermind, and the power of a mastermind. So yesterday I was in my Vistage group, which is a group of corporations and business leaders that you have to do 10 million or more in business in order to get into the group. So it already kind of filters out some folks, but it's really powerful because it's as they, Napoleon Hill talks about like an invisible third person in the room that is created through a mastermind. So when you're sitting there talking about how do I get my mentality right? How do I get my mindset right? Open it up to other people, just like what we're doing right now is essentially a mastermind as well. So we're right on track doing it, but think about have other people come into your life and let them talk to you about your goals and your goal setting and where you can go, what you're planning on doing, because that just empowers you so much more, and you're going to be thinking about things that you never even thought about by just sharing with other people what it is that you're getting at. So it'll really help your mindset with the power of a mastermind.
I'll butt in here for a minute. It's Jamie with Blanchard Insurance, and I will say this past year and moving into the next year for strengthening your mentality about this is definitely, for me, been self-care and health, and that exercise in the morning. And, definitely for the few months there, I don't know, I'm sure I'm not the only one, but you kind of let yourself go and, oh, you can't go to the gym and you can't do this and that. And just that extra every morning positive affirmation and, the exercise and getting all of the endorphins moving has made me and a lot of us in our office just much stronger people moving into the next year. So that's really where we're kind of putting our focus. And every morning, we send out a quote to the office and the positive affirmations and talk about goals. This last year, we brought in a psychologist to talk to some of our teammates, and that was kind of fun, kind of taking a page out of the show, that Wall Street show, and I can't remember the name of it now, but where they bring in the psychologist to the Wall Street firm and kind of help you with that positivity, and we've been working on that a lot.
I'll add something, Don. This year, as Don kind of alluded to, and I did have a major surgery. I had a heart surgery, a double bypass. So it really forced me to kind of take into account what really matters and where I should be focusing my time and efforts and energy. And, we all got drugged through a really nasty political election cycle and COVID. So for me, it was really just kind of getting back to what Chris alluded to, in terms of the mastermind, utilizing the resources we have. And I'm a big Tony Robbins fan. I went to his business mastery course in Namale, Fiji, like 10 years ago. It's crazy to think it was 10 years ago now, but when you talk about the power of focus and the different things that he teaches, it really, makes you take into account, what really matters and focusing on those things, because when we look at it, we only have a certain amount of time in a day, and of course a month and a year, when you extrapolate that out. So for us, it's just, hey, what am I good at? What's getting us the returns? We look at every closed deal and, okay, that deal came from this activity. That deal came from referral sources. So really just kind of focusing on, what has worked in the past and doubling down on our strengths and just phasing out all that stuff that we can't control. That's something, one of my goals for this year is not to, worry about those things happening in Washington, DC or other places, but really focusing in on my team, my family, people that I can help, and just kind of doubling down on that.
I'll go next. I actually went over this morning right before I got here with my team, and have some notes that for me, my mental toughness this year or last year's came from fear of failure goes hand in hand with fear of rejection. Pure and simple, to achieve success as a real estate professional, you have to accept that you're going to face rejection, lots of it. And that can be difficult to handle. It requires an exceptional mental toughness and the ability to bounce back after a setback. It certainly helps to know your numbers. The only way to develop that mental toughness is from training, education, putting yourself in the fire and working yourself out of it. One of my absolute favorite quotes, it's on my wall. If you don't know what it is, look it up. The Man in the Arena. It's a Theodore Roosevelt quote. And that has helped me huge this year, because, I share my failures often and the things that I've gone through, and you just have to keep getting up there and really develop that mental toughness and bounce back.
Go next. For me, every year, and I've done this for many, many years, I've been in the space for a long time, but I always look at where is the one area that needs the most improvement. Where's the one area for growth and opportunity that I should really be focusing on this year? And I make that part of the business plan. And then I look at what's one thing I want to accomplish and what's the deadline going to be like. And so I've always sort of put those things into perspective every year. In my opinion, that's the only way to get through, major projects such as writing a book while you're still running a business.
Hey, Don, I'll jump in here. And thank you and for the honor to speak here and be here. I think the thing that most important for you is I start my day with gratitude. I start at about 5 a.m. And I spend the first hour not on the phone, and my last hour of the day not on the phone or any electronic devices. So that's one of the things that keeps my mindset set. I look at the day, at the end of the day report from my director of operations, see what we have to do the next day. I stay focused. I come in and I start my morning calls at 7 o'clock. I have a coaching call at 7 o'clock. Then I go on to another call from 7:45 until 8:20, and then I script practice from 8:20 to 9, and then we lead gen every day 9 to 11. I live by my GPS and my 411. It's a thing that keeps me focused, that keeps me straight. Well, not straight, but you know what I mean. And lets us stay focused. But the bulk of all that, and the most important part of that is I have two incredible partners, Divya Chugani and Jake Meisner. And with them, we have created a team that is strictly focused. Jake manages all the back end stuff of the house, even the front end stuff of the house. And Divya and I are the lead generators for the business. And if you work as a team, I think that it really works well. People talk about books, and I'm currently reading Tribe of Millionaires. I'm rereading Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. And this probably is the best book that I've gotten in the last year. It's 1,000 little things happy, successful people do differently. And we start our team meetings with a moment of gratitude, talking about what we're grateful for. And then we go into this little book. So I think mindset is the most important thing. you know, when you live your passion, and this is my passion, I never knew this, and I wish I'd only been here 5 years. I wish I'd known this before. When you live your passion, your life just becomes exponentially bigger, you know, and I'm fortunate that I surround myself with really important people that change my mindset, help me change my mindset, and coach me through it.
Hey, Don, I'm going to jump in because I'm just so excited to hear everything that everyone is doing. I feel like we have been focused on most everything in the past year, but the one thing Jack didn't add was the one thing. I was going to mention Tribe of Millionaires. There you go. There you go. So many people have these amazing goals and they sit down and they brain dump in September, October. They're like, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then it's like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So if every day, every week, every month, you have pieces that you can bite off to get you towards what's the end result. And every week when you review what your goals are going to be for the week, what are the most important things that are going to get you to that end of the year goal? And if that goal is doubling your business, or if that goal is more relationships, or if that goal is health or family, those are the kinds of things that will help you hone in and not be overwhelmed. And then you get to check that off at the end of the week, or it gets moved however it needs to be. But the other thing I would have to say is I've been hearing too that pouring back into other people is really important. One tool that we got for our team, because we've now grown to 14 people on our team, we ordered a product called Smart Dollar. So as we're growing as individuals, as our company is growing as a whole, we're pouring back into our people individually. Smart Dollar is allowing them, it's a Dave Ramsey program, like Financial Peace University, and you can buy it for your company, and each person can individually work towards their goals, and everyone can have little bits of successes, because my goal or my what I feel like is success may not be the same success for someone else. There's different levels of successes. So pouring into your team, having mindsets, and keeping up with your lead and lag measures will get you focused and allow you to methodically get through without being overwhelmed. And you guys are awesome.
You're pretty awesome too, Mary. Appreciate that. Jack, there's a request for you to list those books again if you get a chance. If you want to put them in the chat, people would like to know the titles of them when you get a chance. I know that there might be a couple other thoughts. We'll open it back up. Just a quick little summary so far of some great ideas that were thrown out there. We had Chris mention masterminds, and obviously that's kind of what we're doing right now. I was also going to recommend the book Tribes of Millionaires, which I actually heard about through your husband, Mary, through Hank. And I've read it myself. And I know that Bobby Polini, I believe, is a part of that organization too. And so it's definitely been a great turnaround for me too, to kind of just be more aware of the people that I surround myself with. It's that concept of, you know, you're only going to be as successful as the people that you surround yourself with. And so for some people who really truly want to make this your best year ever, you might need to ask yourself the question, you know, do I need to level up my circle of influence and my peers, and think about where I need to spend my time and who I need to spend my time with going forward in 2020, 2021. And maybe it's people that are on this call would be some people that might be worth getting a little bit more time with in this year. We had so many great ideas thrown out there. Jamie threw out self-care in the morning, just making sure that that's obviously tied into your mentality and knowing how you feel emotionally. You know, our life is dictated by our emotions. Tony Robbins talks a lot about that as well, right, Ryan? So, I know Brandon brought up Tony's work. And so the ability to, you know, tap into that, what it takes for you personally, and that might be different for everybody, but having that self-care routine, like Jack talked about, where he spends his first his first hour on gratitude. I do something every morning. I call it my power hour. And it's a combination of gratitude with Bible study and scripture reading and some journaling, a little bit of working out just to get my blood flowing. And I have to have that power hour. And if for some reason I wake up late or I skip it, I mean, it really there's a drastic difference in how I approach that day versus when I know that power hour was executed at the level it needs to be. So, so many other great ideas. A couple of you mentioned the importance of having a plan with a schedule and staying committed to it. I think it was Christina that talked about, just learning from failure. I think that is so wise because if you really want to have your best year ever, somebody taught me a long time ago that to achieve bigger goals means you're going to be rejected more, right? So embrace the reality that you're going to have to deal with more rejection, and the people who succeed the most get rejected the most is usually how that works. So that understanding makes a lot of sense. And I love your thought, Mary, about Smart Dollar. I'll look into that myself. I have not heard of that program before, so I appreciate you sharing that. Any other thoughts that anyone has that you want to share on the mentality approach before we start talking about some of these other nuggets here? Anybody else that wants to dive in?
Yeah, I had something I wanted to add. I'm glad that Jack brought up the GPS. A GPS is something I had my best year spiritually and financially and personally in 2020. The GPS for me is guidance. I've had great mentors into my life. You have to have those and have great guidance in your life that goes above them. But you got to have people that are above you to be able to level up, as we all have heard many a times. And the P is plan. Had to have a plan set out instead of just allowing myself to be a tumbleweed flowing through the wind. A plan is absolutely crucial. And then S, the support. You've got to have a great team. You cannot do it alone. I feel bad for anybody who tries to go out there on their own little solo journey. I give them all the love in the world. They'll figure it out eventually. I know it. GPS. But the other thing, just real quick about mindset. One thing that helped me out tremendously last year is I realized that I was involved with toxic positivity. We can't just be rah-rahing it and saying, yeah, life is great all the time. Affirmations are good. Affirmations are even better. Asking ourselves great questions. And one thing I had to ask myself was, is this positivity a little too much? I had to realize that there was some shadows that needed to be taken care of, some darkness that needed to be brought up. Some of us might realize that we might be very controlling and we try to suppress that. So what we come across is a lot of controlling people outside of us that are even more controlling than they normally would have been, because we're projecting onto them because we're so much into this positivity that we're not recognizing some of the parts of us that are very much holding back some of our great energy that we can be putting into our businesses, or maybe even some money beliefs. Maybe we're stuffing down some bad beliefs we had on money, and we're finding people who have a lack of money beliefs as well out there. So, and not just the positivity, but also realizing that there are some parts of us that we need to look at and bring to our attention so that we can recognize them and release them so we can have new energy for our life and business.
Hey, Don, I'd like to jump in as well. Ryan, you touched on something, and I think what it boils down to, what you were talking about, is empathy. And when you take that moment to really show true empathy, not sympathy, kind of meet somebody where they are or meet an issue where it is, you at the same time you meet them where they are and hopefully can bring them back to a little bit more positive place, but also to be successful in business, ultimately every day we're solving problems. And if you don't acknowledge that there's a problem, it's hard to solve it. So that's just a little nugget there.
Nobody wants to be the ostrich with your head buried in the sand. That's for sure. And understanding, I think a couple of you brought up the idea of going into the new year, identifying your areas of opportunity. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about that and get some more insight on that. When you think about the planning component, the mentality, I think we all agree is the most important part, right? The way we're thinking about it. There's a famous quote out there that 90% of life is about our attitude and 10% of what actually happens, right? And it's going into the new year with the right mentality is without a doubt the most important thing. But when you embrace that mentality, then how does that transfer and convert to actual execution? And so talking about specific areas of opportunity of growth when you go through your planning for a new year. And one of the common challenges I think that a lot of people struggle with is the idea of there's so many things out there that could distract us, right? There's the shiny penny syndrome that many of us can have where we're chasing so many new things that we think will be the end all be all and the game changer for our business. Maybe it's a new marketing vehicle. Maybe it's a new, way of doing business, a new lead source, a new way of even going through the administrative side, or a new staff member, whatever it might be. How do you approach the mentality of just staying consistent with the status quo and just getting better at that, year in and year out, and seeing improvements with that versus, the balance of chasing new things, chasing new opportunities, identifying what are the right opportunities for you to be putting your energy into? How does that all come together when you think about planning for a new year? What are some of your thoughts on that?
Hey, Tom, let me jump in on that. When you had sent out the information you were doing on what your format was today, one of the things that I've learned on my morning calls is, and we have it sort of a mantra for all of us, is we are obsessed with consistency. And I think that's one of the most important things. And I think the second part of that is that time blocking for me, I have learned, is the most important thing. And how I had a hard time with it in the very beginning, understanding as I drank the Kool-Aid, for lack of better words. But what I understood was, when I finally put it together in my head, is that when we have an event to go to, one of your events, it's in my calendar, it's a not miss. If we plan a social event with family or friends, it's a not miss. Why are we not doing the same thing with lead generating? And fortunately for us, our most important, we're 99% referral based, is the sphere is the most important thing for me. Working the sphere and doing the care calls, care calls and compassion, as Elijah spoke about. In fact, Elijah is the one that got me in the business and took me from 0 to 4.5 million my first year. Thank you, Elijah.
That was all you, Jack. I was just there.
Elijah, man, taking people from zeros to heroes. That's a good tagline for you, Elijah. Good. Who else has something you want to add?
Just tag on to what you said earlier, Don, about not getting distracted. It's really easy, right? With how to put things right in front of you. So it's just really staying very keenly focused on what's the one thing I'm working on this year that I need to improve more than anything else. And then for me, I usually will seek out books and people that are really good in whatever it is I'm trying to learn. And that will be my area for growth in that particular year. So for me, I'm working on a lot of things based around leadership this year. So I know how to be an amazing agent. I've done that for a long time, but leadership's a different animal, right? So when you think about it's not just about me anymore. It's about a lot of other people. And so the leadership piece is really important. And I know there's a lot of other really great leaders on this call, but it's just, how do I be not just a good leader, but like the best leader that I can be?
One thing that I do, and I'm very goal oriented. And what I do is I look at every day what I have to do and what is the one thing that I want to accomplish that day. So at the end of the day, I feel positive about it, because we all know we get positive and negatives throughout the day. And it's really important that we end up on a positive note so we wake up excited about the next day.
I love that. I'll go as well. So part of the 12-week year that we're really focusing on in MAPS coaching is to evaluate your circles. So it's physical health, personal life, key relationships, job, business, finance, and spiritual. So for me, those buckets, when you sit down and you rate yourself on those and your reality, where you are today and where you want to be in 1 year, that's going to allow you to put together a really powerful 12-week action plan and really just continue to make those changes. So, keeping it simple and focusing on those key circles and really understanding your reality, where you are and where you want to be and what changes you need to make to get there. Also for me, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And when I started, having that really powerful morning routine and doing those things, that's where the changes happened in me as a leader, personally, everything. But I keep track of everything I do during the day. So my staff at the end of the day, they send an end of day report. I do the same for myself, share it with my coach at the end of the week. And it's what more can you do to make sure that next week is more efficient, that you've done more. So I would definitely learn to inspect what you expect, and you should know at the end of the day what you're doing to move your business forward in your personal life.
I think Christina picked on a really good point, which is also, you'll notice that she said she sends it to her coach. And I think everybody here, if you don't have a coach, should get a coach, because you need someone, the third party, that's not your best friend, that's going to give you that third party feedback, that's going to give you the real reality of where you are. So I have several coaches myself. One of them is Mike Ferry, and Mike's a great guy. He coaches with me every week. And I pay him a lot of money to do so. But he'll just hand it to you and he'll tell you the truth. He doesn't beat around the bush. And that's, I know Christina has a very powerful coach as well, that was hand selected for her by Gary Keller. So, just get that coach, get that person that can be in your corner, fighting for you, but also giving you the realistic view of things.
And I think mentors are important too, Chris. You're one of mine. And, having those people that will tell you and call you out on your BS is important. So it's, and someone that's going to push you every week to do better. Since I've became a coach as well, I feel like it's made me a better leader.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd like to add one point to that idea that sometimes it's important. This whole topic is about how to have your best year ever. But for some people, it's about defining what they would need to see in order to actually have it be their best year ever, right? It doesn't have to always just be, well, that's just sales for me. Maybe it's more, in your case, that you need to develop stronger relationships, or maybe it's that you need to develop a certain leadership skill, or maybe it's that you need to take more self-care that has been brought up a couple of times. There could, and in Christina's point earlier, she elaborated on that wheel of all these different categories that you can use as a tracking device to figure out like progress in each one, whether that's financial, whether that's sales, whether that's health related, whether that's, spiritually. And then going back to what Chris just said, I would highly recommend finding a coach that specializes in each one of those areas. So if you haven't already done that, every coach has a specialty for a reason. You might already be coaching with a great real estate coach, but your relationships are a mess. Or, you might feel really good physically, but your sales are not where they need to be, right? Or financially, you're not investing in the way that you want to invest, or whatever, or you don't even know, maybe you'd love to learn about cryptocurrency and you don't even know where to start, right? For this year. But being able to identify coaches that are specialists in different areas and just reaching out to your network and finding out who those right people are for you. I completely agree with what Chris said, that when you do adopt a coach, I have a couple different coaches in my life in different areas of my life, and just the amount of time that it saves you by learning from other people's wisdom is so critical at the end of the day. And if you really want to define what it means to have your best year ever, take some time to really define it in all of those categories so you can really see growth in all of them. I might have cut off Jack a little bit. Did you want to add a couple thoughts, Jack?
No, I think, and I just want to echo what Chris and Christina said, because I think that I had a coach second year into it and it wasn't working out, and I realized that we just didn't mesh. But I hired Pat Mancuso last September. When I heard he was going out on his own, I hired him and I said, would you take me on? Because when I was in his very first Bold class, he took me from in February, I was a brand new agent. And by May, I had produced $50,000 just because of what he had said to do in Bold and Coach. And I think that coaching has pushed me beyond whatever I thought I could do. I'm pretty good at being resilient with whatever needs to happen. But I think when you have a coach that believes in you more than you believe in yourself, they can push you even farther. And I think that Chris and Christina have spoken eloquently about that to begin with. Most important, it's the biggest investment I've made. I mean, $2,000 a month is a lot of money to me. I don't know about you guys, but it's a lot of money to me. But the $2,000 a month has made us $300,000 in a quarter. So we can't complain.
Right. That's awesome.
Hey, Don, I'm going to add a couple things here. Just listening to everyone's on the panel, and I can resonate with really just about everyone, what they're saying. I mean, Jack, I time block. I think it's one of the most important things that we could do because there's so much to do in a day. I learned a long time ago, working in your business or working on your business. Right. So there's a time and a place for each, right? And so I've learned, I need to do what I need to do to build business, and then I need to conquer the business I already have existing. And Christina, going back to what you said, one of my first brokers, my first broker had said, if you take on a pad of paper and kind of draw the spokes of a wheel, in a sense like that, I don't know if you can see that, and then just fill in each of the spokes as far as how much of that day is taken up, or how much time you're using, or how full are those buckets, and you can kind of see if it's all filled out evenly. If it's a spoke on a bicycle tire, is it going around and around, or does it have a bump in the tire? So those are little areas that you could see that you need to fulfill.
This online meeting is lit properly.
Here's somebody, I don't know what that is. That wasn't me.
You can use just about any sort of light.
There we go.
That's Louie.
I got your back. I got your back, Debbie. I got your back. Good stuff.
Yeah, but anyways, I just wanted to kind of add those things. And someone set up the shiny penny. In our industry, there are many shiny pennies, so many. And I think you have to just, be like a racehorse and put your blinders on and just kind of stick with the basics and go with the basics. Do your basics really well, because those shiny pennies will take your traction and you go left to right and left to right like crazy.
I'm curious, many of you on this call have built great teams, have, had year upon year, your best year ever, and seen growth in that way. What are some of the common pitfalls that you see from your vantage point in agents that struggle with trying to have their best year ever, going into a new year? Just common challenges, common pitfalls, things that you think really tend to hold people back, that might be good to flush out a few of those.
I think one thing we saw at the beginning of 2020 when COVID first came out is agents kind of thought that the sky was going to fall, and that we were going to have another 2008. So I think, going back to that mindset, and for those of us who are team leaders or brokers, I think that that's huge, is kind of instilling in our agents that the sky is not going to fall. And even if we had gone back to a 2008, and we actually did quite the opposite, that there's always opportunities in real estate, even if we have a shift. So I think that that's huge. And I think kind of going back to what somebody said about not recreating the wheel and getting sucked in by shiny objects. I think it's easy for agents to kind of see shiny objects at other teams, other brokerages, and kind of focus on that. And what it really comes down to is the hard work and the drive that they're putting in. It's up to us as leaders to kind of bring them back around to that. No shiny object at another company or another team is going to make them successful. A lot of it comes down to the drive and to the work that they're actually putting in.
Hey, Don, I'll piggyback on that, with the team stuff. And we just started the team a couple of years ago, and we've grown ours organically. I've had the opportunity to teach some classes in the office. So that's where I've sort of pinpointed people, and they have just been naturally attracted. The first thing I ask people, I know this is going to sound awful to say, but I'm going to say it anyhow, is if you don't want to earn $100,000 a year, you don't need to work with me. The second part of that is, if you don't want to work, it's okay. You don't have to work the way, here's Margot and I in the office working all the time, right? All of us that are here work all the time. If you don't want to work, don't come to work for us. And that really weeds a lot of people out. If you ask them what their goals are and what their aspirations are, and what's their spiritual base. For us, our team is very spiritually bound on many different levels. And I don't want to get into religiosity with that as well. But if we're not spiritually bound and you don't know your own spirit, and you don't come from a place of transparency and authenticity, you really don't need to belong with us, because we are all that. And we're all that when we go out to our clients as well. And we tell them, we're not here to list your house, we're here to sell your house. So if you get that mindset mentality going in that door, first thing in the morning, starting your day off right, team members get it. You know, first when I started doing the books, you know, when I talk about the 1,000 little things, when I grew up, I came from a really born again Christian background. But my grandmother used to open the Bible. We'd read, you'd put your finger on the passage and we would read that passage and talk about it. You know, if we all do that with our books that are our guides, and go back to our notes that are our guides. I mean, I write all the time. I'm writing as we're here. Go in and just grab one little nugget. If that's your nugget for the day, as Margot just said, if you end the day with one good thing that you've really done well, you've excelled the day as far as I'm concerned.
That's some good points. And I definitely think that, you know, this works, you know, for all different industries that are on this call, right? So we have, with insurance, this was a big year this last year for us too, you know, bigger than normal. Same with real estate. There's a lot of changes. And narrowing our reach, where before everybody wants to grow and be in all these territories and all these areas. And, you know, same with real estate and growing teams and having agents in different sections. And when we actually started narrowing it down, we tended to reach more people. So it was a good life lesson for us in this business, that there's business right out your back door within a certain radius, you know, and as we were trying to grow, when we actually brought it all in and focused on what we were good at, things were incredible. Things got bigger. So that was one thing we definitely took from that as well.
You know, Jamie, it's funny with what you just said. So in my earlier life, I was a corporate sales manager for a small business hotel, and a book that was recommended to read taught me something just like that, that your existing client is your best client. And so, you know, your back door, like you're talking about. So it's really, if we all keep that mindset, and someone else had said, I think Jack, you know, your SOI. Your SOI is, most of our business is SOI. We go after other business, of course, but what comes to us. So your past client, your existing client is your best client.
Right. And for us with the insurance and the retaining the books of business and, you know, the retention residual piece, you know, that tended to ring true. And then the same with the real estate agent, you know, cycle of working your existing client base, you know, and working what we're good at, you know, and forget the rest, you know, like focus on what you're good at and, you know, take that as a learning experience.
I think you also need to reward your best clients. In other words, say thank you to them. And if they're the ones that are bringing you referrals, then you need to somehow let them know that you really appreciate them. When I go out on an inspection, I'm there to thank the client and to thank their, to thank the agent and to thank their client for choosing us. And we also this year, for the first time, gave out gifts at Christmas time to our top 50 agents. And everybody really appreciated. Most people don't get thank yous often enough, and we need to do more of it.
We work the same way. What gifts did you give out? I'm just curious, because 92% of our business is referred or past clients that repeat with us.
Forgive me, I'm not very computer oriented, and Dawn tells you I always have trouble getting on the meeting every week. But we gave out, you know, those things that you can plug your cell phone into when you're out. It's a battery recharger is what it is. And you charge it ahead of time, and when you're out and your phone dies on you, that happens sometimes when you're out listening to a webinar and you're at a restaurant or something, you can just plug it back in, and everybody really liked that. Something they can use.
I'd like to put a bow on one part of the conversation, which is this kind of, I would call it a balancing act between staying focused on what you know you're good at and in your strengths and looking for new opportunities. Because I still feel like that's a challenge that a lot of people I hear from struggle with, is figuring out where to allocate that energy and that time. So I'm curious, for those of you, again, who have seen massive growth over the years, do you find that most of your growth comes from just consistently, you know, the status quo, but just getting better at that same system, same routine, year in and year out, and, you know, improvement and, you know, continual progress? I'm a big fan of the whole concept of course correction, right? Like analysis, weekly debriefing, and then correcting, right? Course correcting, just like pilots who leave Tampa International in order to land in New York. They're off track over 95% of the way, but they're constantly course correcting on the way, or else they'd land in Kansas, right? But they end up in New York like they're supposed to be because they course correct. So do you view growth as constant course correction in your normal routines, or do you find that looking at something new, a new opportunity, a new add-on, that many times is the facilitating factor for growth one year upon the other? How do you feel about that balance?
Dawn, I'll go. So Gary Keller says people love to get lost in complexity because they think success is hard. Repetition creates massive success. Make peace with the boring. So that is where I believe most agents fail. And it allows you to course correct if you just get into just a simple schedule and it's repetition. You know, at 5 to 7 a.m., read, pray, journal, exercise, have your lead generating, usually 9 to 12 right now is what we're encouraging. But when you're every day, you're in, you know who you're going to call, what you're going to say, you know, if you're going to focus on expireds or if you're going to focus on past clients, but every day you're getting into a habit. And then at the end of the day, if you don't have any appointments, you go for the continuous lead generating and continuing your prospecting or adding new levers of business, and you learn each and every day. You just have to get into that, believe it or not, that powerful schedule, and it's going to allow you to do the things with your family. It's going to allow you to really lead the biggest life that you want. And it's just consistency and being okay with the boring and just making those changes. At least that's where I've seen the most success.
What Christina said basically was very, very, very important. And the only way to understand if you're doing it correctly, in my opinion, is if you know your numbers. If you have lead and lag measures. So, you know, obviously people know their lag measures. This is how many transactions I did. What did it take to get you there? What were the lead measures? What did you have to do? Did you have to contact 100 prospects to get your 10, to get the deal, whatever? But knowing your numbers is so important. And if you don't know what your true leads that are working are, you're not going to be able to replicate it and keep going. So self-correction, knowing your lead and lag measures is going to allow you to self-correct along the way.
I agree with Mary.
Somebody has been reading the 4 disciplines of execution when I think of lead and lag measures.
Yeah, I would agree with Mary. Every single day at 5 o'clock, our market center administrators, who are essentially our bookkeepers, get with their team leaders and they send in to me 5 different KPIs, key performance indicators, which measure various levels of success. So it'll be appointment set, where our company dollar is, you know, things like that. And it's that daily inspection. So as Christina said, you got to inspect what you expect, which is something we say a lot at Keller Williams, but that daily inspection holds yourself accountable too. And then you can do that course correction, as Don's kind of mentioning, as you see that you're not, you know, for instance, you're not setting enough appointments. Well, you know, I know that I need to have 20 appointments by the middle of the month. And if I'm not at 20, then we need to course correct and get up to 20 if I'm at 17 or 16.
Can I jump in just a second, you know, and to piggyback on what everybody has said already? I think for me, the first 2 most important things this year has been learning to leverage and the coaching. So we hired a director of operations, then we hired, because I didn't know how to train anybody to do what we do, because we do what we do. We hired a company with Brinley Tucker, who was also with Keller Williams, and she trained our admin. Now he's changed our life. You know, when you have a good admin that can think the way you think and think ahead of you before you're thinking, I think that's really very important. You know, the other thing I do is I start out my very, very beginning of my workday with our 555. So I do 5 text messages, I do 5 phone calls, and I do 5 to 10 note cards every single day. You know, the art of handing out a note card has really been lost. And last year we got 4 listings from a 56-cent stamp just by sending a note card. So doing the things that that work best for you, finding the things that work best for you. You know, one of the Gary Kohler quotes that I love the most is, be like a postage stamp, sticks to one thing until you get here. I moved here 5 years ago. I didn't know a soul, not a soul. And I did things I'd never done before in my life. Went out and met, if you asked me to go bowling, I went bowling. If you asked me to go roller skating, I went roller skating. If you asked me to go to the dog park, I went to the dog park. I learned my first year in business, I did $3.5 million worth of business learning how to square dance. Now, don't laugh, but you know, you find the different avenues. So anytime anybody asks you to do something, do it. Just do it. You never know who you're going to meet. You know, and when you attract those good souls, for lack of better words, and those souls that you have a kindred souls with, they're going to bring other people into your world. And then they're going to see how you are, see how you behave. You know, one of my monikers has always been wearing a bow tie. And nobody in Florida wears a tie unless it's an attorney in the court, right? So put on a tie, for God's sake, and put on a good pair of shoes, put on a suit. You know, I'm not comfortable in a pair of sneakers and golf shoes and golf clubs doing that. I mean, I feel like that I have to act like a professional, and I'm not saying everybody has to be like me at any level. But I know that when I was here my first year, they came to the desk from an open house and said, I want to see the old guy with the bow tie. So you know what? It works. Find something that works for you and stick with it.
Jack, I gotta say, there are 2 other bow tie. I call them my bow tie boys. You've got Nick Buchanan, who's the young bow tie in Tampa. And then you've also got Christian Sidwell, 2 of our top agents that we work with. So you will be number 3.
Don't forget about Bobby Pellini. He's a bow tie guy as well.
Yes. Excuse me, Bobby. Sorry.
They're all copying Jack, so he was the original.
Yeah, Don, I'll chime in there a little bit. I think there's a nexus between the 2 that you mentioned, between the doing the same old and perfecting that and looking for opportunity. And I think a couple of things. One, it boils down to sometimes you have to look at the opportunity within your own business where you can improve. And I do think there's a healthy amount of looking for other new opportunities. That said, I think part of the myth behind that being a problem is a lot of people are looking for shiny objects when really, if you're looking for opportunities, they're probably the rusty objects, not the shiny objects. They're probably the things that are not getting attention, not the things that are shiny and new and attract the attention of the masses.
That's a great
I just
point.
want to add,
Rusty objects, not the shiny ones. I agree with you completely there.
I just want to add that I was actually shocked because when COVID hit and we had to start doing the Zoom, I was petrified. And this had been on my to-do list to learn Zoom for like 2 years. And it forced me out of the box and made me do something that was very uncomfortable for me. And then I found by taking that venue and now tweaking what I was already doing, it had fantastic results. So it was kind of combining the old and the new.
I can add on to that. We pivoted last year as well Zoom I was not uncomfortable with or anything like that. But what we did do, because we weren't physically in front of people, we used to sit down with buyers, and sellers for a consultation, and then everything went to Zoom. So what we did do was I put the consultation, everything I would want to tell them about the way we operate and how we're different on a video. And that's what I send them. So that when we spend time together, it's all about them. They're not listening to any more like sales pitch, I guess, if you will. So it really just kind of got that out of the way. It's, hey, did you hear my video? It's packed with useful information. You really should take the time to watch it. It's going to cover a lot of things that you probably have questions on. And our time together is just going to be spending it with you one-on-one. So I think it increased our conversion and it was looking for that new opportunity, right, in a new world.
That's a great idea, Katrina. they call that pre-framing in the business sense, right? Just setting those initial expectations before the actual meeting. And not only is it a huge time saver, but it's a very powerful way to kind of position yourself as a true professional in the space. I think that's a great point.
Well, from a time point, you hit the nail on the head with that too, because that was one of my biggest challenges, is I felt like it would take so much time to get through those consultations, but it was the most important thing that I would ever do with the customer. And so by taking that away, even if they haven't watched the video when I get there, I try to make a big enough impact on them when I'm there so that they will promise me they will watch it when I leave. And then it's kind of just a little check-in, but it cut the consultation time in half. And so I found it was a great way to still make a huge impact, but really save time. And so when you look at the fact that I could cut that time in half, theoretically, you could meet with double the amount of people, right? With some more leverage.
I'd like to get some more insight too on, let's say somebody has a plan. They've taken some time to kind of plan their best year ever for this year. They feel like they know what their power hour is going to be. They have their schedule. They feel like they are locked and loaded, right? So as we all know, as the year unfolds, our motivation ebbs and flows at times. External situations like COVID-20 comes in and causes who knows what as the next obstacle. So what are some of your best practices for just staying motivated and staying on track and feeling like you're constantly making that progress rather than almost like the feeling of throwing your hands up in the air and feeling like, I'm just not executing correctly. I'm not working it's not going the way I had planned that this was going to go. There's an old saying that as we plan, God laughs, right? So it's important for us to be flexible, but also obviously critical for us to have those systems in place that keep us motivated. So what are some of your best practices of ways that you've been able to, execute at the levels that you guys do?
I can touch on that a little bit. And it's a combination of everything I've heard, which I am super jacked up. I wish I had a listing appointment after this. You guys are awesome. But it's in with consistency and habits. We all know what to do. You guys are all awesome. And we all know the one thing's important, but for me, I got lost. There's a little bit of a conflict there. It's one thing, but we got to do a lot, right? So how do you translate that in your own mind? Because we know what to do, but what do we do first? What comes next? And I do have a coach, and he taught me this thing called Hoshin, Hoshin, which I can't find anywhere on the internet, but it's in the book, Good Talk, Great Sales. And it's about prioritizing. And he says we have to-do lists, but we need to not to-do lists and learn how to truly prioritize what we know we should be doing that day and start with the most important, the most impactful things, the most difficult things first and work it back. It also helps with work-life balance, right? Because we don't all work this hard just to work this hard. We work this hard because of someone else that we love and we care about and other people we're doing it for. So if you want that balance and that sanity and that free time, you start with the biggest things and then narrow it down to the least. So at the end of the day, you can omit some of those things that you really don't have time for, the energy for till the next day, not really going to have such a negative impact. And it's a great transition to let go mentally of those things and check into to the family. But Hoshin is just to teach you a quick thing is, let's say you got 5 to 7 important things to do that day. You create a little bubble chart like this. Maybe you can see that. And I know it looks kind of weird, but you're not praying to the stars. It just looks that way because it's so symmetrical. It's just a bunch of circles. So all you're doing,
hexagon, Bobby, is that what you're showing us there?
No, that's actually a circle, but they're interlooping. So I'm just drawing arrows to different circles. And it's like, let's say 5 things I have to do today: take out the trash, prepare for showings, run errands, call back a client, or study for a presentation. Now, if you're just glancing at it, you'll probably just pick one, like you're rolling a dice, and then you've used up time to do that. But if you take 5 minutes to Hoshin that list and you draw arrows from one topic to another, but just 2 at a time. So it's between take out the trash and prepare showings, which one's more important? Clearly the latter. So that gets an arrow. By the time you're done with the whole list, you have a collective priorities. So out of those 5 things, the first thing I should do is call the client back. The next thing is study for the presentation. The next thing is prepare for the showing. Next thing, run errands, and then take out the trash. So it's been a huge game changer for me to do more by myself, and still have a really good work-life balance using the Hoshin to prioritize what we already know what we should be doing, and which is also realigns our goals and our tasks and keeps us from, chasing the butterfly. So
Bobby, if that's a book that you were just showing us, if you wouldn't mind putting it in the chat, I think people might be interested in getting
yes,
it.
For sure, brother.
Thank you.
Hey, Don.
Yeah.
I'll add something, and then I got to take off and head to the studio. I record coming up soon here, but yeah, I think from a motivational standpoint, if we're on this call, we're business owners, we're self-employed, we're making it happen, and we've been making it happen for decades, some of us. And one of the things I always thought about was kind of like benchmarking, and even going back to the football days, like looking at other teams, seeing what they're doing, and there's a lot of motivation just looking at some of the folks on this call, or even within our office, people that are doing more in volume, hitting awesome numbers, 80 million, 100 million. So that's what really kind of I look at, and it motivates me to say, hey, if they're doing it, we can do it. We just got to keep putting one step in front of the other, one foot in front of the other, and pushing hard to do it, improving your skills. I love negotiation. I put that in the comments about the negotiation talk. And and of course, writing books. I love writing books. I've got my 3rd book about to come out too. So that's fun. That's a fun part of it, and I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I've got to get going. Sorry, I have to leave early, but I appreciate it.
Man.
Glad to see your face.
Quarterback audience.
Glad to see your face, Brandon. I'm glad you're doing well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Katrina. We really do. Thanks.
By the way, just side note, an important side note, I saw Mandy Reidiger on the call here, and Mandy just got out of the hospital herself recently. We've been praying for you, Mandy, and I'm glad to see your name on here. I don't know if I know I can't see your video on, but I think you might be listening in. So I hope you're well, and hope everything goes well on the health side on your end as well. So God bless you.
Hey, Don, I'll add one of the other big game changers for our team is accountability, and having a set time, an immovable appointment time, Mondays at 10:30, Mondays at 1, whatever it happens to be, because we've got different teams that meet at different times. If you are held accountable and you can recite 2 to 3 positives from the last week and 2 to 3 negatives or challenges. And this is personal and business. This is not just all business. We ask our team members, what happened positive in your life? What happened positive in the business? What happened negative and negative? And we go through and we're held accountable every Monday at 10:30, Hank and I, and then we have the executive team. We sit down and we have to run through this, and we're accountable to have our information, not be scrambling, coming in 5 minutes late. We have to really, these are important meetings. And if you find an accountability partner, if it's someone that you can't be accountable to, your wife, your spouse, find someone with another company or another team member and be accountable to them, because being late for an appointment shows that you don't have respect for someone. And you've got to be able to respect someone to be accountable with them.
Another thing I want to add, in a prior life, I was a financial planner. And I think that if you're headed in a different direction than your plan was, because that's where your activity is taking you, maybe what you need to do is just take a minute and reevaluate your plan and say, okay, well, I was planning to go in direction A, but that didn't work for me. Well, all of a sudden, everything's directing me towards plan B. And if you reevaluate your plan, it's going to remotivate you, because all of a sudden you realize, oh, I have new goals out there, and it's possible for me to achieve those goals. I mean, I was constantly redoing plans with clients as something in their life changed. All of a sudden they had a kid or somebody got sick. So that's just another idea.
Under the spirit of staying motivated, and a couple of you have brought up the critical importance of your morning routine, there's another great book out there that I've enjoyed. It's called Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. It's written by John Maxwell. Good leaders ask great questions. And so as part of that, it's part of my morning routine, I identified just a couple of critical questions, not only into my morning routine, but also my evening routine. I think Margot talked about, taking even a few minutes before you go to bed at night, just to kind of recap the day, right? And so I'll just share one or two of them, but in the morning, like asking myself the question, what am I committed to today? And that's on my journal. It's on my, what I use every morning as part of my Bible study, work. What am I committed to today? And the second question tied into that is this aligned with my priorities? So we spend a lot of energy and time on our plan, but of course, is our day-to-day actions actually aligned with that overall main plan? And so those two questions, if for some reason my mind, which tends to drift a lot day to day, as we tend to get things pulling us in all kinds of directions, that question forces me to refocus and think about what needs to get accomplished that day. And then at the end of the day, one of the missions that I've tried to set for my business and personal life is just trying to add value to somebody every day. Just add value in some way, shape, or form. So that's like an evening question that I have in my journal is, how did I add value today? And if I can't, thankfully, it could be something as simple as taking out the trash and making my wife happy, right? But am I adding value some way, shape, or form? And then the other thing I always ask every evening is, what did I learn today? How did I add value today? And what did I learn today? And those two questions really are how I put a bow, on the day, and it puts me in the right mindset, I think, in terms of, by the way, one other side note is those of you who wake up at 4 a.m. or I'm very envious. Like, what time do you guys go to bed? Like, what's your routine on that side?
11.
Yeah, I've been going to bed 8:30, 9 o'clock. Since I started the 4 o'clock. I just drop.
That's impressive. Very impressive. I'm such a late person. I'm up usually jamming until midnight. So these 4 a.m. wake ups are just tough, man. That's hard.
Don, I woke up 15 minutes before this meeting.
So Don, I was going to say something about, actually, you and Jack both had mentioned the morning routines. Mine has been boring and the same forever. And I'm a between 4 and 5. And I'm up until 11. One big thing on the recap, and this kind of ties back into what was said just a few minutes ago. And at the end of the day, recapping what happened, looking for like, what were those wins? What were those losses? And then going back and looking at, okay, so what did I learn from those? Because if you can learn from them, they're no longer a loss. So going through and looking at those things, and also I think just paying attention to the way you feel at the end of the day. Because like when Bobby was talking before about the Hoshin thing, at the end of the day, if you're doing the right things, I'm sure we've all had days where you get home and you're just absolutely exhausted. You've been going nonstop all day. And then there are other days when you are crazy busy all day and you get home and you're still energized. And those days when you've been busy all day and you're still energized, you are doing the right things. And for me, that's one of the big things to pay attention to is when you're getting ready to go to bed at night and you go through and how do I feel? And then put that together with what you did, you'll start to notice those patterns and you can quickly identify some of those things that you're doing that you shouldn't be doing, or the things that you are doing that you should be doing.
I just wanted to mention something I thought that some of you might really like. I just got wind of this great. I think elite performers really do think differently than the rest of us, and to be, to really max out your life, I think you got to really be good at time. You got to work time. I run in some groups of people that say time's an illusion. They'll be the same people that say, hey, I got to go. I got to get up at 8 a.m. Okay. So time is very real. So one of the things I wanted to bring up was, why do we have to have 24-hour days or 365 days in a year? My man, Ed Milet, brought up a great concept of mini days. He mentioned how elite performers get more done in 6 hours than most people get done in 24-hour days. And so he breaks his day up to mini days, 3 6-hour days, 6 to 12, 12 to 6, 6 to midnight. And that has completely changed his life. So most people get 365 days. we could have near 1,100 days by looking at our time a little bit differently. You don't have to have a 24-hour day. So when you're doing time blocking, maybe introducing mini days, 6, 6, and 6 could really give you more days than most people that you're working around. So I just wanted to bring up that concept. I thought mini days was really cool.
Awesome, Ryan. I try to stay away from the 666 as much as I can, but that's a pretty cool idea. I'm a fan.
It's a good number.
777.
Yeah, Debbie's going with the 777 instead. I like it. One thing I also wanted to throw in there, I know we've talked a lot about daily habits. For me personally, a big thing that's helped my business and personal sanity, I guess, is having a weekly debrief time that I treat like a non-negotiable appointment. So for me personally, it's every day, every week, Friday, at the end of my work week on Friday. So before I get into weekend mode, I have like a self weekly debrief that's in my calendar as a recurring event, and it's blocked off every week. And there's really just 3 questions that I ask myself in that weekly debrief. And that's what went right this week. Like Elijah just talked about, you have to take some time to celebrate, right? That's really, even if it feels like the week was a mess, there's always something, if you're intentionally focused on it, that you can celebrate. The second question is, what didn't go right? What went wrong? And just acknowledging it, being aware of the things that we need to improve. And then the third question is, what do I need to improve on next week? Or what course corrections can I make for next week? So just asking myself, again, those 3 questions, going back to what I said earlier about the power of questions. I think it was Katrina that mentioned that leadership is a completely different animal. And in my experience, the best leaders that I've ever worked with are leaders that know how to ask the right question at the right time. And if you can get good at understanding that power of questions, that's what a great coach does, is be able to kind of draw that out of you. So that daily habit and the weekly debrief habit have been 2 things that have really made an impact on my business. And we're going to be wrapping up here in a few minutes, but we still have a few minutes. Anybody have any other thoughts on ways that you stay motivated, ways that you keep your team motivated? We didn't talk a ton yet about getting the most out of your people. I know Jack talked about that a little bit earlier. Any other thoughts you might have about how to be able to not only have the best year ever for yourself individually, but what about for your team? Like what kind of themes, culture, things do you do to try to create an environment where everyone is thriving and having the best year ever? Does anything come to mind in the last few minutes that we have?
Don, I'll add something real quick about what you just said about asking good questions. Good leaders ask good questions. One of the coaching methods that we've been taught, because we've got 2 different coaching groups that we're part of, is when you ask that question and you get an answer, whether it's a short answer or a long answer, dig deeper. Ask why. Well, why did it make you feel that? I mean, keep digging until you really can get to the source. And a couple things, it shows that you care, but it also allows you to completely understand where another person's coming from. Whether even if it's a client that's happy or a client that's sad, dig deeper on your questions.
If you ever want to learn more about what Mary just said, there's an exercise out there called the 7 levels deep exercise. It was actually created by Dean Graziosi with Tony Robbins, and very powerful coaching technique about asking your people a question, letting them talk about it, but then asking them why like 7 times to really try to find out the real reason that they're driven by a goal, or that the goal matters to them, or something to that effect. So it's called the 7 levels deep exercise. And I've done it with people that I coach, and it's very powerful. Somebody says, "Oh, my goal is to sell X this year." You ask them why, and they say, "I want to buy a home. I want to travel." Okay, well, why is that important to you? Oh, well, the next thing you know, by the time you get to the 7th thing, it's about like how they grew up and who they are as a person, and about their kids. And it's like they find the real reason. And that's mind blowing for them to even tap into what it's really all about, not just the material thing, which is the top of mind answers that we tend to give off the top of our head. So great point, Mary. I think that's amazing. Any other thoughts on how to get the most out of your team?
I think it's important to know what makes them tick. We had a young lady join us on our team about 6 months ago, Her husband's just retired from the military, and her whole goal is to be the primary income earner for her family. Now, I mean, they have a retirement, so on and so forth, but he is a very decorated veteran, has done incredible work. But her whole goal, when she said that to me, it just blew me away. And actually, she grew up in the same town that I grew up in Jersey, which is really, really a weird thing. And her whole goal was to be the primary income earner for her family. Her husband had always been the income earner. So when you find what makes them tick, money doesn't always make people tick. The other thing is, I really agree with whoever said it, and I apologize, I don't remember. Margot, I apologize, you see it on the screen right now, is you reward your best clients and reward your employees and work with the people. If you're a team, you know, we just went through a whole branding exercise, and there's some things that I like, some things that I didn't like, but everybody has a vote. You know, this is not, you know, one person's society. Everybody has a vote. And if everybody has a vote in something, they feel that they have the power to make other decisions as well. It's just that one vote that helps them understand they have that power within themselves to say no or yes. And I think that the more you reward everyone, we delivered 100 doormats that said, live in gratitude to our clients this year. And the comments that we got out of people were absolutely unbelievable. You know, if you just come from contribution, just not at Christmas and Thanksgiving, do it the middle of February, do it on Valentine's Day, do it on, you know, the end of March. Do things like that because people remember how you make them feel, right? Not what you said. I didn't remember what some people said, but you remember how you make you feel. And I surround myself with people that just love and support you to the max. And if they're not there, they don't belong there, right? I mean, that's my own thought on that one.
Chris, did you have something you wanted to add to wrap us up?
Sure. I was just reminded of a book that I gave all my team members. It was Who Moved My Cheese? And it just asks a very powerful question. And that question is, what would you do if you knew that you could not fail? What would you do if you knew that you could not fail? And it's just a very powerful question that really gets into, you know, why we don't do things.
Love that.
Love it. There's a lot of great stuff that was even thrown in the chat here, guys. So if I actually found that 7 levels deep document and threw it in there for you too. I know Ryan threw a nice document in there as well.
Okay, well, let me give you, well, today I'm going to be working rather late. Actually, I'm going to be in Tarpon at around 5 p.m. So let's plan on sometime tomorrow. What day is tomorrow? Friday. I got a 10:30.
All right, Mary, we will join you at Lake Tarpon. I can't wait to see you there. We are going to wrap up the call, the Zoom call. I want to thank all of our contributors. If any of you, as you know, we're doing this the second Thursday of every month. So as we have an outline of the topics and ideas that we're going to be discussing going forward. But if any of you have certain topics that you would be passionate about, that you would love that we address and that we just, you know, open up for discussions, don't hesitate to email me. All of you, I think, have my email address by now, don.hill@realproducersmag. And shoot me any ideas. You know, I want these panels to obviously be something that you view as a value add for your business. My email is now in the chat. And if I can ever do anything, of course, to add value in any ways to your organizations, then, you know, we would love to do so. So thank you so much for those of you who contributed. And God bless all of you this week. We do have a new thing that you'll hear more about coming up called Thirsty Thursdays. So if you're being featured in one of our issues, you're going to be invited to attend a small little social mixer on the last Thursday of every month at a cool little, you know, lounge, gastro lounge type thing for apps and drinks. And it'll be a small intimate group of about 20 people, no more than 20 people. And hopefully we'll have many of you invited to that moving forward. So everyone have an amazing week. Thank you for joining, and we will catch you guys later.
Thank you for the honor.
Make it a great week, beautiful souls.
Hey.
Hey, everybody. Great time today.
Thanks, Don. Thanks, guys and gals.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for a great time. Learned a lot.